everyone! Today's video is Web Automation Part 2. And in this video, we're going to be doing web automation, but we're going to get the data from a CSV file. And you can alternatively do this with an Excel file also. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a lot of different things. First, I'm just going to explain what is web automation, and then I'll introduce what a CSV file is, and then we'll show you the use cases of web automation, and then we'll talk about what today's program and the demo will look like. And then finally, we'll just get straight into the demo, in which first we'll look at the data that we have in our CSV file. Then we'll do the setup in the code, then we'll do the actual web automation part from the CSV file, and then we'll just test it out. So first, let's introduce web automation and CSV files. So web automation, I've already introduced this in my other video, which is Introduction to Web Automation. That'll be in the description. So it's just letting a software do tasks for you. These tasks can be anything from testing to running a Python program. And web automation is programmable, which means that you can change it to do whatever you want it to do in multiple different languages, such as Python, C, Java, Go, lots of different languages. And there's different types of automations based on what you want the program to do. And then finally, let's talk about some use cases. So the most common use case of web automation is in regression testing. And regression testing mainly consists of just testing over and over again the same things we've tested last time to make sure it's still working. So instead of manually doing that, you can make a web automation program to do regression testing for you, which is what lots of companies do. And if you want more use cases, you can check out my other video on web automation. Alright, so that was about web automation, but now let's talk about CSV files. So CSV files stand for comma-separated values. And it's a file format that's basically just a delimited text file. And each line in a CSV file is basically a record. And each record has multiple different values. And those values are separated by commas, as shown in the name. And CSV files are mostly used in importing and exporting information because they can be easily transported. And the file format is very simple to convert into a table data. So now let's check out today's program. So web automation with the CSV file. So we'll have some CSV data. First of all, we'll make it in Google Sheets, but you can also do it in Excel. And our program will read each row of data, and then it'll open a browser instance for each row. Like let's say there's 7 rows, then it'll open up 7 browser instances. And then it'll fill out a Google form with that same data, and then it'll submit it. So we'll open multiple browser instances based on our CSV file, and then we'll fill out the form with the same data as the CSV file, and then submit it. Alright, so now that you know about web automation and CSV files, let's combine these to do our today's program, and let's get into the demo. Alright, so I'm going to go to Atom so that we can actually code this. And actually, before we do that, I want to show you some other things. So here, first I want to show you the data that we're using in this Python program. So this is the data that we want to enter in the form. So we have a name column, an age column, and then a score column. So in the name column, we just have a bunch of names, and then we have ages, and then we have the score of their test. And yeah, that's the data we want to enter in the form. Next, let me actually show you the web automation form. So here's just a Google form that our program, it'll open up this Google form. It'll open up a new browser instance with this Google form for each row. Like for example, for this row, it'll open up a new one. For this one, it'll open up a new one. And then just like that for each row. And then in each Google form, it's going to enter the same data, like Felix 3190, Jimmy 2291, like that. It's going to enter that here, first name, age, and score. And then it'll submit it. All by itself, it should do that. So let's actually get to doing that in our Python program. So let me go to Atom here. And first of all, I have our data.csv, which is the same data that we have in our Google form right here. So I have my data.csv and our Python program. So in the Python program, first I'm just doing our imports, and we're importing CSV and time for its time function, for its time.sleep function, and then we're importing WebDriver for web automation. So first, let's just do some setup. So first of all, I want to read our CSV so that we can actually work with the CSV file. But before that, we have to read it. So I'm going to say with open, and then I'm going to use the open function for our data.csv because that's our CSV file. And then we're using the read operations. You can also use write operations, but since we're reading this, I'm just going to say R here as the other argument. And then we're going to read it as, we're going to open up this CSV file as CSV file. And then we can just use this CSV file as a variable. So now inside of this, we're going to do all of our programming because inside of this will be our CSV file operations. So here I'm going to make another variable called CSV reader, and this will actually read the CSV file. So this is a variable, so we need, and we're going to use our CSV module here. So csv.reader, we're using a function called reader that will just read the CSV file. And then we want to use our CSV file function here. So now this CSV reader variable, this will just read our CSV file, which we already have in our folder. So now we can use this CSV reader whenever we want to use any CSV operation. And I know I said CSV a lot in this video. So yeah, that's actually all there is for the setup. And now we can do the web automation part. So now that we have our CSV reader, so we can use the CSV operations, now I want to loop through each row in our data, and then for each row it should open up a new browser instance. Oh, my mic fell down. Okay, so the microphone is fixed, so let's get back. Okay, so for each row, we want it to open up a new browser instance, and then we'll open up this form and fill it out. So we want to loop through each row. Oh no, what did I do? Okay, so we want to loop through each row so that we can open up a new browser instance and fill out the form and all that. So let's do that. So I'll go back to Adam, and in the web automation part, let's create a for loop. So I'll call this for loop line, or no, we can just line. So for each line in our CSV reader. So CSV reader. And whenever we want to use any CSV operation, we're going to use the CSV reader variable because that actually read all the CSV. So here we go. So now in this, we want to open up the new browser instance and then fill out the form. But before that, I just wanted to print out the data that we have. So let's just print line. So now it should loop through our every line in the CSV file, and then it should print out what data we have. So let's save this, and then we can run it. Alright, so I'll go to terminal here, and the first thing we have to do is pip install our modules. Alright, so I'm gonna pip install our modules. So pip3 install Selenium. Okay, so it says requirement already satisfied. And if you haven't already installed WebDriver or Chrome driver in this case, then you should do that and then put it in your path folder of your computer, and then you can just continue with the same programs. So I'm going to just run our program, which is called automate csv.py. So Python 3 automate csv.py. I think it's called CSV. Yeah, CSV automation. Okay. CSV automation.py. Alright, so there we go. It printed out each column. So here we have our CSV data. It has name, age, score, and then Felix, Jimmy, Jack, Logan, and then their age and scores. So in terminal, it shows that also. So it has all of our data. There we go. That worked. And it did that line by line. See, it's in an array, like it has it line by line. So the next thing we want to do, instead of just printing it out line by line, let's actually do the automation. So let's just comment this out because we don't want it to bug us every single time. So let's actually just remove that. All right. So just like regular web automation, I'm going to say driver equals webdriver.chrome. Driver driver.chrome since I'm using the Chrome browser. But if you're using any other browser, then you can just add it here. So driver.get, and then we would get our URL of our form. So let's go here, web automation form, and then here we go. So I copied it, and then let's paste it right here. So now what it'll do is for every line, it's going to open up a new browser instance, and then it'll open up this URL. So then since it takes like 1 or 2 seconds for all of the elements in the web page to render, we're going to say time.sleep for like 1 second based on how fast it loads. And then I'm going to get the XPath of all the elements, or in this case all of the fields like first name, age, and last, and score, and then we're going to fill out the data that we want. And if you're new to this, then you might want to check out my other video on web automation. So here we're going to make a variable called like maybe name, because this is the name field here. And then we want to get the XPath, which is a way of identifying different elements on a web page. So I'm going to go here in Chrome, and then I'm going to press the 3 dots, and then more tools, and then developer tools. There's also a shortcut for it, but I just don't use that one. So here, and then let me just move out this, let's just move this out of the way. And then I'm going to press this little button here so that we can select any element on the web page and see it's highlighting it. So let's just select the first name field and then click it. And then here it shows us the HTML for that first name field. So I'm going to right click it and then press copy and copy XPath. And as you can see, there's other ways of identifying the elements. I'm just using XPath because it's the most used one. So copy XPath, and then we're just going to go back to Atom. So name equals, and then we're going to use our driver variable, driver dot find element by XPath. So find element by XPath. And then we'll just find the element by this XPath. And in this case, this is the XPath for the first name field. So now we know how to identify the first name field from all the other names. But we want to actually send some text. And since this text is different for every browser instance, that's why we have it in a loop. So we're looping through each line. So let's just say name.sendKeys. And then this sendKeys function, this will just send some text. So like you can send whatever text you want in this field. But since we want it to be data from the CSV file, we're going to have to do something a little bit different. So let me go back to terminal to explain this. So as you can see, for each line, it has a different like array kind of. So we're going to make use of that and say line with an index of 0 in this case. So line is each line in the CSV file. But if we say line with an index of 0, then it's going to get the name field. So like it'll get name, Felix, Jimmy, Jack, Logan, Jake, and Billy. So it's going to get all of those for each browser instance. And then same thing for the age and the score. So if we say line with an index of 1, then it'll have age 31, 22, 31, 25, 24, 19. And then same thing for score again. Like if we say line with an index of 2. So let's do that. Now it'll just send the keys with with an index of 0, which is the first name. Actually, before we do the other things, let's actually just test it out. So Python 3 CSV automation.py, and then run it. And now it should open up a browser instance. It should open multiple actually. So here it opens up the browser instance with the thing, and then we have first name is name, and then here it opens up another browser instance. And then here we have Felix, I believe. Yeah, there we go. And then it opens up another one. For each line, it'll do that. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, so let's just leave this site. So I just pressed Control-C, so it just gives us an error. All right. So now that it did that for the first field, let's do it for the rest of the fields. So here we have the age field, and then we're going to have the score field also. So let's just click this button to select an element. And then same thing as before, we're just gonna select the age field. And if you have a different form, then you can just use the XPath from that form also. So again, I copied the XPath. And then here, let's make another variable called age. Oh no, what happened? Age equals driver dot find element by XPath. And then here we'll have the XPath. And then same thing as before, age dot send keys. And then the keys we want to send is line with an index of 1 this time. So before it was with an index of 0, but now it's with an index of 1. And the reason we're not just typing like Jake, Billy, Logan, I don't know the rest of the names. The reason we're not just manually typing those is because I want to get the data from the CSV file. So now if we added more lines to it, like if we added more, like for example, here now it's Felix, Jimmy, Jack, Logan. If I added another one saying John, then it would still work. So that's why I'm using this index and all that. So now we're sending keys with line with an index of 1. So let's test that out just to see. Alright, so it should open up a new browser instance, and then this time it should type in the name and the age. So name, and then it should say age here because that's the first thing. No, it didn't work. Huh. Let's see this then. Okay, let's just leave all these sites and clear that. Oh, I just didn't save it. Okay, my bad. Okay, let's just run that program again. This time I saved it, however. So it should say, okay, there we go. So it should say name and then age here. All right, name, age, okay. And then it should open up another one. And then here it'll say like Felix and then 30, I think. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so it'll just open up a new browser instance for all of them. So again, I'm just gonna press Control-C and then leave all the sites. And clear that. Okay, so now we know how it works. So I'm just gonna copy this here and then paste it. And oh no, we need to unindent this again. Okay. So instead of age, now the variable is going to be called score. And you don't have to use these kind of, you don't have to use name, age, and score. You can use whatever. And you can also use however many columns you want. So it's all up to you. So in this case, it has a different XPath, so we're going to grab that later. And then instead of line with an index of 1, we want to use line with an index of 2 because it's the last column. So then I'm going to go back to our form and then get the XPath. So I'm going to select the score thing and then copy the XPath. Okay, so I copied it. Then we're going to paste it here. And then now it's filled out. It's going to fill out all of the forms, but we want it to also submit the forms. So let's make a variable called submit and then driver.findElement by XPath. And then let's go back and get the XPath. So here's our submit button, and I know that there's different elements in the same submit button, but anyone is fine, it doesn't really matter. So here I'm going to copy the XPath again, and then go back here, there we go, XPath. And then we're going to use a different function this time. So submit.click this time because this is a button, so we just want to click it. All right, so there we go. So now let's just recap the whole thing. So we're opening up our data.csv, and then that's just going to store the CSV file in a variable called CSV File. And then we're making a CSV reader variable that will just read our CSV file line by line. And then we're looping through each line with the for loop here called line. So we're looping through each line, and for each line, it's going to open up a new browser instance, and then it'll open up our form right here. And then for each line, it's going to fill out the data that's the same data as the CSV. So like Felix 3190 for one form, and then it'll submit it, and then in a new browser instance, it's going to do the next line and then the next line for all 7 lines. So yeah, let's just test it out. So let's go to terminal and then run the program. All right, so here we go. It opened up the first one, and now it should fill out the whole form, name, age, and score, and then submit it. Okay, there we go. Okay. So it opened up the next one, and then this one should be called Felix something something. Okay, there we go, and then it submitted it. And then next one, let's just, okay, here, it opened up a new thing. And then should fill out, so it's filling out different data based on the CSV file. And you can add as many rows and columns as you like, but this is all custom based for your own need. And the link for this GitHub repository will be in the description. And then it'll just fill out for all of the data. So let's see, login, and then it submits it all by itself. Like, see, I'm not doing this at all. This is the program. And as you can see, it's saying Chrome is being controlled by automated test software. That means that the software is doing it, not me. So there we go. And okay, one more. See, it's filling out different data for different forms, and it's opening up all of these. So Billy 1900, and there we go, it submitted it. And then it just closes out all of the thingies once it's done, and then it ended the program. There we go, that worked. Alright guys, so I just wanted to address a few things before I ended the video. So this data that I used in today's demo, this was just sample data created by me, but you can use any type of data. You can add way more columns, you can add more rows, you can add less columns, less rows. You can build this program to fit your custom needs. And this video was one of my most requested videos. And a lot of people requested I do this with Excel, but I didn't have Excel on my computer, so I just did it with CSV files. But I've seen multiple articles on how you can do this with Excel also. It's the same structure of program, you just need to use different modules and stuff. And speaking of modules, I used the CSV module in this program, but you can also use the Pandas module just as easily, because I know Pandas module, it works with CSV files, and I've done that before. And maybe I'll make a video on that in the future. So stay tuned for that. Thanks very much for watching. If y'all had any doubts, please comment down below. I would love to help you out if you're stuck with any CSV web automation questions or issues. Please like, subscribe, all that jazz. Until then, you can learn anything.